Everywhere in the world today, mankind is subjected to the rule of European civilization and has been embraced by the European model of a secular state. The European system of secular states eventually produced a novel international political institution called initially the League of Nations, later resurrected as the United Nations. In the name itself, United Nations was enshrined the goal of the new world order created by Europe, to unite the world under European political influence and control, so that Europe could eventually rule the world. At the time this book is being written, Europe stands at the very verge of final and complete success of that political strategy. All the non-European civilizations in the world appear helpless to liberate themselves from the secular European stranglehold. The ultimate consequence of this European effort, however, was to make possible the return of the Jews to the Holy Land and to deliver the rule to the Jews, so that they may rule the world from Jerusalem. The Quran al-Anbiya 21-96 had very plainly declared that when Gog and Magog were released into the world by Allah Most High, they would descend from every height. In consequence of such, a people who had been expelled from a town which was destroyed by Allah Most High, and whose return was prohibited, would now return to that town to reclaim it. This book has argued that the town is Jerusalem. When Gog and Magog descend from every height, it would be impossible for the rest of mankind to resist them because of the divine declaration. I have brought forth from among my servants such people against whom none will be able to fight. You take these people safely to Tor, and then Allah will send Gog and Magog, and they will swarm down from every height. Sahih Muslim. It is clear from the above that European civilization, after the advent of Prophet Muhammad, is the civilization of Gog and Magog. Genesis of the modern secular state. The modern secular state emerged after Euro-Christian civilization was mysteriously attacked from within and was subjected to ominous and revolutionary change, causing a civilization that was ostensibly based on faith in Christianity and Judaism to be transformed into an irresistibly powerful, essentially godless, amazingly deceptive, and appallingly decadent civilization. This was one of the most unique and momentous events ever to have occurred in European history. The godlessness of modern European civilization was plainly apparent in its embrace of materialism, which was the logical culmination of the adoption of a new one-eyed epistemology that insisted that knowledge was derived from only one source, that is, external observation and experimentation. The other eye, that is, internal intuitive spiritual insight, was rejected as a means through which knowledge could be acquired. The modern secular state emerged in consequence of the application of that new European godlessness to political philosophy and political theory. But while the secular state appeared previously in history, it was only in the modern age that it became a universal phenomenon, embracing all of mankind in a new secular world order. And the modern age emerged in consequence of that European revolution, which embraced all of mankind in its godless, secular embrace, and proceeded to transform all of mankind into a single, global, godless, secular, and decadent world. Is there anything that explains it? Our claim is that only the Quran explains it. The godless European Revolution was an even more mysterious phenomenon, since it was accompanied by a scientific and technological revolution that empowered godless Europe with a power that seemed invincible, and gave it such glamour that made it irresistible. The steam engine, trains, motor cars, trucks, mechanized tanks for warfare, ships powered by steam and oil, airplanes, etc., completely changed the way the world traveled and waged war, changing the way people lived. Electricity changed people's lives. Telephones and telegraph made instantaneous communication over long distances possible, and this, in turn, changed the way people lived. And a feminist revolution gave to women the freedom to embrace the functional role of men in society in defiance of the functional difference established and ordained by Allah Most High. Quran al-Layl 92-4, that was heralded as women's liberation. It resulted in the most momentous and ominous change of all in the way people lived. The New Europe directed a sustained attack on mankind by appealing to base instincts of greed and lust. A sexual revolution promised to make sex natural and unnatural as readily and freely available as sunshine. Marriage was increasingly considered to be redundant, and people could choose to live together without being married, and yet be considered to be leading respectable lives. Homosexuality and lesbianism were defended as alternate sexuality, and became so acceptable in the popular consciousness that a homosexual or lesbian priest or rabbi could emerge out of the closet to claim respectability and continue to function as a priest or rabbi. Indeed, even the word homosexuality was secularized in order to remove the social repugnance attached to unnatural sex. It was replaced with the word gay. An unsuspecting public accepted the apparently innocent change of name. A consumer revolution gave to mankind an insatiable appetite for acquiring more and more of the new consumer goods that dazzle the eye. The new godless Europe proceeded to use power to conquer the rest of the world, and to colonize it, and then to use glamour to seduce all of mankind. Ento imitating the godless, decadent European way of life and new consumer culture. The godless European Revolution witnessed its political turning point in the American, French and Bolshevik revolutions in 1776, 1787 to 1800, and 1917. The economic turning point was the emergence of the usurious economic system based on riba, and it was fully achieved through the Protestant Revolution. And the cultural turning point was the emergence of the feminist revolution with its struggle for women's liberation. But none of these revolutions would have been possible without the accompanying scientific and technological revolutions. Shirk and kufr of the modern secular state. At the end of those revolutions, Euro-Christian civilization, which used to be based on faith in God and in His sovereignty and supremacy, no longer recognized the God of Abraham alayhi al-salam as sovereign, nor His authority and His law as supreme. The modern secular state was now recognized as sovereign, and that was shirk. The authority and law of the modern secular state were now recognized as supreme, and that was shirk. The state had the authority to declare halal, to declare legal and permissible that which the God of Abraham alayhi al-salam had declared to be haram, illegal, and prohibited, and it proceeded to do so, and that was shirk. Shirk is a very great sin. Indeed, it is the greatest of all sins. It is the one sin that the God of Abraham Most High declared that He would not forgive. Surely Allah does not or will not forgive shirk, but He can forgive everything else to whomsoever He wishes. And whoever commits shirk has committed an awesome sin. Quran Al-Nisa 448. Whoever commits shirk and dies in that state can never enter into heaven. Allah has made it haram for whoever commits shirk ever enter into heaven. Such people will dwell in hell. Quran Al-Maida 5-72. The worship of idols is the most overt form of shirk. This form of shirk has largely disappeared from the world today. But there are other forms of shirk that are also described in the Quran. Pharaoh, for example, declared to Moses alayhi al-salam, I am your Lord God, the Most High. And he declared to the chiefs of his people, O chiefs, no God do I know for you but myself. That was shirk. The worship of Pharaoh by the Egyptian people required them to submit to his authority as the supreme authority in the land of Egypt, and to recognize his law as the supreme law in the land of Egypt. That, also, was shirk. The Quran has repeatedly admonished those who establish hukm, that is, the system of law and justice, on the basis of other than, or contrary to Allah's authority and Allah's law. However, when the divine guidance reaches a people such as Jews, Christians, Muslims, and they accept that guidance, then the situation is quite different. If such people have an opportunity to establish their control over territory, and they then fail to establish law and authority on the basis of the revealed divine law, then the Quran unequivocally condemns them and accuses them of kufr disbelief, dulm injustice, and fisk wickedness, and awesome sin. And whoever fails to judge on the basis of that which Allah revealed has committed kufr disbelief. And whoever fails to judge on the basis of that which Allah revealed has committed dulm injustice and oppression. And whoever fails to judge on the basis of that which Allah has revealed has committed fisk wickedness and enormous sin. Quran, Al-Maida, 5:44-47. Since the declaration by Pharaoh and its concrete application in the land of Egypt were acts of shirk, it followed therefrom that the same declaration by the modern secular state was also an act of shirk, since the God of Abraham alayhi al-salam declared that whoever fails to judge on the basis of that which Allah revealed has committed kufr disbelief, dulm injustice and oppression, and fisk wickedness and enormous sin. And the modern secular state has done precisely that. It followed therefrom that Jews, Christians, Muslims, etc., who established the secular state after having received the divine law through the Torah, Psalms, Gospel, and Quran, would be guilty of having committed kufr, dulm, and fisk. If a Jew, Christian, or Muslim were to cast a vote in a national election in a modern secular state, that vote would imply that he considered that party he voted for to be fit to govern over him. And if that party as government committed or commits shirk, kufr, dulm, and fisk, then the implication would be that the Jew, Christian, or Muslim would follow his party and his government into shirk, kufr, dulm, and fisk. The Quran has also denounced as shirk the act of making halal whatever Allah had made haram, and vice versa. Thus revelation came down from the God of Abraham alayhi al-salam, in which he denounced Jews and Christians of such a monstrous sin. They took their priests and rabbis as Lord gods beside Allah, and they did this in respect of the Messiah, the son of Mary as well. But they were not ordered other than to worship and serve one God. Glory is to him. He is far and above the shirk which they commit. Quran, Al-Tawbah, 9:31. When the Jews acted in this way, David alayhi al-salam and Jesus alayhi al-salam cursed them. Curses were pronounced on those among Banu Israel who rejected faith, by the tongue of David and of Jesus, the son of Mary, because they disobeyed and persisted in excesses. They did not enforce the prohibition of that which was sinful and evil which they committed. Evil indeed were the deeds which they did. Quran, Al-Maida, 5:78-9. Whoever dies with the curse of a prophet upon them have no chance whatsoever of ever escaping from the burning flames of the hellfire. In fact, it is the height of hypocrisy for a people to declare that they worship the God of Abraham, and to then proceed to legalize that which he had made illegal, and to prohibit that which he had made permissible. The hypocrites, men and women, have an understanding with each other, they enjoin evil, and forbid what is just, and are close with their hands. They have forgotten Allah, so he hath forgotten them. Verily the hypocrites are rebellious and perverse. Quran, Al-Tawbah, 9-67. If it were an act of shirk when priests and rabbis made halal that which Allah declared to be haram, then it would also be an act of shirk when a government does the same thing now. And if it earned the curses of prophets at that time, it would do the same now. Now, the usual method of approach for studying this subject is to weigh the pros and cons of participation by believers in the electoral politics of the modern secular state. The defenders of the secular state wax eloquently about its merits. Some argue, if we do not participate in electoral politics, then we will have no political representation, no one to struggle for our rights. At a more serious level of thought, another argument is raised. Participation in electoral politics is the necessary condition for any successful struggle to change the godless political system. The matter of shirk is addressed by way of a subterfuge. We will participate in elections, but will do so on the basis of a public stand that we do not accept the secular constitution and the secular state which it preserves. This escape clause will protect us from shirk. Our response is to point out that participation in electoral politics in a secular state ipso facto signifies acceptance of the secular character of the state. The secular state makes the same declaration that Pharaoh made to Moses, alayhi al-salam. That declaration is, the state is sovereign, its authority is supreme, its law is supreme. That is shirk. When people vote in elections in a secular state, they thereby accept the claim of the state to be sovereign. They accept its claim to supreme authority, and they accept its law to be the supreme law. When believers vote in such elections, therefore, they cannot escape from committing shirk. Secondly, when believers vote in elections in a secular state, they have to vote for a political party. If that party, as government, declared to be halal, what the God of Abraham, Most High, made haram or enforced laws as such, then that government committed shirk. Around the world today, governments and parliaments of secular states have already declared halal nearly everything that Allah declared to be haram. When believers cast their votes for such political parties and governments that have already committed shirk upon shirk, such votes would imply acceptance of such people as fit to govern over them. Thus believers follow them into shirk, kufr, dhulm, and fisk. Thirdly, this method constitutes a violation and an abandonment of the Sunnah of the Blessed Prophet of Islam sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Political parties and governments around the world today are comprised of those who disdainfully persist in declaring halal that which Allah declared to be haram.